Fortunately, the following year, we had a choice of assignments. So I went back to Compton. And over that course of time, you're talking the late 60s, early 70s in religious life. I think maybe much like the homily that Father Ricardo gave this morning, people looked at being called to other commitments and feeling that they had received the training, they were now ready to go out. And I watched us withdraw from school after school. And I will have to say, which is not necessarily to my credit, there was a certain satisfaction when we pulled out of schools that we didn't think had the value systems we would have liked them to have. But then you run out of those. Then it becomes very painful. And I had just finished my master's, and it was the first summer that school was not on the assignment. And a friend of mine was running a 400-unit housing project in San Ysidro. And they had a terrible time finding somebody capable of working with the girls. The boys' coach was not succeeding. The girls actually walked off the field on him. So he asked me if I would come down, do the coaching that summer, and run the girls' club, which was a terrific assignment for me. And then during the year I went back, I taught in Compton and went on to Hunters Point in San Francisco, which was a similar environment. But I began to see, for me, there were less and less opportunities to stay in inner city schools. If it were an upper middle class white school and one sister was taken off the faculty, the school could absorb the cost. In an inner city school, one sister went off the faculty, the school closed. There simply was not the monetary opportunity to keep that in place. Excuse me. And so I began to feel more and more called to do something else. With the priest that I was working with in San Ysidro, who was an Augustinian, he was the only one in his community doing that kind of work, and he began to sense a difference. And was there a sexual attraction between us? Absolutely. But it was a very unusual experience of both feeling called to form a community. And for 39 years, we did that, both working in low-income housing, and then a strange thing happened. And we were looking for a new apartment complex to manage, and were asked to take on one being built in Solana Beach. We were told it was on the outskirts of Oceanside. Sounded like the perfect combination to us. Little did I know Solana Beach wasn't quite the outskirts of Oceanside. But we had a chance to do it from the ground up. And when we realized that economically it wasn't what we said we were going to do, we felt we needed to at least do the opening process. And it was an eye-opener for me. The owners asked us after hours to take a gift box to every new resident that had a bottle of wine and 2 glasses in it, just to say welcome. We had people that sometimes when you knock on the door, they'd say, "Who is it?" We'd say, "Manager." "What did I do wrong?" "I don't know. You just moved in. I really don't have the answer to that." But the most shocking for me were the people, and one in particular who was a brain surgeon from Scripps. And he opened the door, and I handed him the box, and he got this big tear in his eyes. He said, I apologize. This is the first present I've gotten in 10 years. And I thought, maybe I need to redefine poverty. And I've always felt physical poverty was what needed to be addressed. And I really began to see that all of us have poverty, and that it looks different in different people, and the levels in some are pretty horrific, that they may monetarily have everything they need and they're totally miserable. And so that was a real eye-opener to me. We ended up there 24 years, so it was a long time, and stayed involved very much in the parish, working RCIA, working small faith communities. But that's essentially my path to getting, and then I did another 15 years of consulting and training during that time. But so I think I understand the challenge that you face and the choices that you will all make and the preparation you need to feel that in your heart, that choice that you're making is true to who you are. Some of you I know, I did the last province meeting. Some of you I know a long time, some of you I know just a short time, but it would really help me if we went around and you gave me a name that I can try to start to put names and faces together instead of a hey you. And maybe just, and it might be interesting for everybody else, what are you doing right now as a youth? And if you're associate, there's still some answer that relates to that. You should start, please.
My name is George Perez, and I'm actually completing my education at John Public University.
Father Carlos?
I'm sorry, Father, what? Carlos.
Chatsworth, Father Pilar.
Yes, it's always a good sign. So sorry to interrupt you.
Good job.
Bill Roman at St. Patrick.
Peter Lucolo, Lukolo, an associate.
And what are you doing as an associate, Peter?
Well, I'm still learning, but for my life, I'm still taking care of my kids to respond to the call.
Thank you.
From where, Peter? From where?
Original from South Sudan, the newest country in the world.
Cecilia Master, I'm a retired school teacher and I'm always available when we get any of the youths or someone who needs English. I work with them.
How many are you working with right now?
Not too many, everybody's so English, but I still edit papers and homilies, even for Father Rodrigo in Manila, he still depends on.
He's an international consultant.
Amazing, that's an exciting job.
And I lost 15 years in the convent too. But anyway, that's a whole nother story.
Ricardo Chinchilla, the provincial right now for the North American province. We live in the same parish with my brothers Bill and Juan.
Gerard, I'm the pastor at San Janus Parish in Chatsworth.
Father Ricardo Juarez, and I'm associate pastor in St. James, Solana Beach.
I've heard of the place.
Eleuterio Mireles. I'm a Juris seminarian finishing my final year of theology.
Who's just about to be incorporated and ordained.
In a few months, yes.
Exciting.
Elvis Presley, I live in Nashville.
Last time I met you were by Lawrence.
Lawrence Freeland, and I am with Father Carlos and Father Gerard in Chatsworth, where we met.
Yes.
Steve Marshall. I recently changed from Judas Seminarian to Judas Workhorse. I work with Father John in Solana.
Elizabeth Ferrara, and I'm lots of question marks around.
And I know her many years from Solana Beach as well as the next
I
child.
must say, I did not take the bottle of wine and the 2 glasses.
You moved in too late, you weren't the original.
Mel John Howard, pastor of St. James and regional superior, also worked with the seminarians.
Stephen Watson, one of the seminaries. I just finished my undergrad and getting ready to move to France for a year. So it's pretty fun.
Ben Trapo, I'm in Phoenix, associate pastor.
Where in Phoenix? What parish?
St. Jerome. 35th and Peoria.
It's cooler here for you.
It was only 115.
I'm Sally Jacobus. I actually am a parishioner, associate and parishioner at St. Joseph's Cathedral downtown San Diego. And my excellent work is involved in a lot of things, but Cursillo is one of them. And I'm recently Ignatian Spirituality Project, which is a facilitating retreats, spiritual retreats of forgiveness and healing for women who are recovering from addiction in transitional housing. Well, we were just here last weekend for a retreat, right? In this room.
Right.
Mhm. And of course, parish ministry, Eucharistic ministry, remember, I cooked for the sisters across the street, which are religious of Jesus Mary, after having the delightful experience of cooking for the seminarians at House of Probation many years back. Never thinking that this would continue.
She too also changed from being Franciscan.
Yes, I was the convent, but just as inefficient back in the 60s. Great attitude too changes a lot of things.
Sister Carol Ann Clark. And in the early 90s, I became introduced to the Eucharist community by Mother Antonia. And with Father Bill and Father John, we spent Mondays sitting and working on starting the associates, which they did. And then thereafter, I felt called to another place in my life to be able to take vows and live a consecrated life. So I did that in 94. In 2000, Bishop Brahm received my perpetual vows. So I minister to the sick, the dying, hospice patients, prepare funerals for families, and more often than not, do a lot of funerals for families that are on the fringes of the church. If they're not registered in the parish, why are you calling us? And so very often the funeral homes will call me to assist the families. And so that's my way of evangelizing.
Thanks. I'm Jean Carr. I've recently toured downtown on Oceanside. And out to the mission and back. And I forgot my hearing aid. If you're going to talk to me, I have to speak up.
It could be an advantage. We'll see.
I couldn't believe when I saw you. I said, oh, that's wonderful. Anyway, I'm Angela Garcia from St. James Parish, but now I belong to St. Patrick's. Yeah. Now I belong to St. Patrick's Parish, and well, that's me.
Hey, Jim Burson, retired, living in a nursing home, often over there in St. Patrick's.
Well, I'm associate at St. Patrick.
Associate pastor.
There is a difference.
I'm Canvas Jersey. I'm at St. Patrick's as an associate, and I have various ministries there. And I guess I'm most known within the Eucharist as a Eucharist axle. So I do little jobs that the priests don't have time to do.
She also takes care of us when we're sick.
I take care of them.
Or attempt to, yes. When I first met with Father Riccardi to talk about this and saw the schedule that was initially penned, I asked him if I could modify it, because I think for all of us that are involved in any kind of mission, it's go, 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 go. And then you come here and in that same year, you attempt to take on a very different kind of project. Who are we? What do we see ourselves being, becoming, and so on? And so I've asked to take today to slow you down, to make you change gears, maybe to find neutral for a few minutes, and also to look at yourself. Who am I? What am I bringing to this meeting? Because look at the size of you. We fit in a circle. Each of you are critical to this community. Whatever role you play, what the UDIS are a year from now, in lots of ways will depend upon what you do, what you give, what you say, how you commit yourself over these next few days. So it isn't, well, I'm not important, let them decide. You are all very important. And strange thing that I think I've learned is that oftentimes it's the person that says less that has the most to say. And if they took time to say it out loud, we would all truly listen, because we're not used to hearing them talk. Some of us are so used to hearing each other, we no longer hear each other. So what I want to do is hopefully help you facilitate a process of slowing down today. And the first exercise I'm going to ask you to do is really stolen in large part from Richard Rohr. That if you ever read the book Falling Upward, you'll recognize the steals. But he talks about the fact that there are two parts of life. All of us go through the first part. Many of us go through the second part. In the first part of life, we're really working, and in fact, I'm a very visual person, so it helps me to see something. Now I realize now that you're all here, there's actually more of you than I thought there would be. So if every couple of you would share one of these, it's a visual, it's big enough. Or there's like only 3 or 4 of you will need to share, so don't get carried away with the sharing. You know what, we're gonna get to the end and we're gonna start passing it back the other direction to fill it. We okay?
I have 2 here, yeah. Okay, well.
Share.
Yeah.
You'll notice you've got a head in your hands. All gears, lots of things going on. When we are younger, we are forming those gears. Who am I? What talents do I have? What do I believe? How do I decide what do I want to do? We need, over time, to clarify those gifts. And much of the way we do that is by outside experience. We have parents. You are good when you do this. You are not good when you do that. And we began to say, how do I do more of the good so people appreciate who I am? How do I find out what I really believe in? And law plays a big part of that. Law within family, law within community, law within society. And I always marvel at that as I drive down here from Solana Beach, and from San Clemente, and if I don't go 75, I could be killed. But the signs I go past keep saying 65 is as fast as you should be going. We make some adjustments to laws too and decide which are important, which aren't important, which one should I follow. And fear of punishment does influence choices that we make. And I think all of us are affected by that, of being loved by somebody else. If I say that, they're not going to like me anymore, I'm not going to do that. Whether or not I think it's the right thing to do. And in fact, I think if we ever want really a powerful example without getting into politics, the whole political reality right now is one of the most interesting ethical studies floating around that people will make choices on. And they will base it, all of us will base it on a variety of different things. But we began to say, this is who I am, this is what I value, this is how I make a decision. And much of that process in this part of our life is from a religious sense of, what can I do for God? Am I pleasing God? Am I doing enough? Have I taken on enough roles? Have I done my role well enough? Will God be happy with me? Will I earn my way to heaven? Will I get the points I need to accomplish what I think is important? And all of us must go through this part of the process in our lives. But after a while, we begin to have an option, which sends us more to the second half of life. Richard Moore would define the first part about building the container. This, I know who I am. I know what the parts are. I trust them. I believe in them. I value them.
This is yours.
I have
No, no, sorry.
You're gonna get one that they can see.
Color coded. Color coded.
Notice how different the image is. There's no parts. There's a light that radiates from the person. Because the person that is truly moved into the second half of life knows who they are. They know the gifts that they've been given. They understand that that law is a means to an end, but it isn't the end in itself. Many times we hear Jesus in the gospel, even if it was as simple as eating wheat by the apostles on the Sabbath, saying it has a purpose, but it's not the end. As we move around, we begin to appreciate that love, in fact, takes away fear. That we can be in a situation that at one point in our life we were fearful of. This is why we know this is the right thing to do. And if somebody ends up upset, if something happens as a result of it, we have no control over that. We only have control over how we live our life and what we do. I'd say if I wanted to make it maybe in the simplest, in the first half of life, it's what can I do for God? And the second half of life is appreciating how much God has done for me. And that each day is a day of gratitude that I have been blessed. That there's nothing I can do to earn this love. It's simply given to me. And for many of us, there's a much greater satisfaction in feeling like we earned it. I did this, this, and this. How many points do I get for it? I really don't care. I love you. There's a great quote, I think, from Bishop Desmond Tutu, and he says, "We are light bulbs, and our only job is to stay screwed in." That's a second half of life mentality. Here's my challenge for you, and I'll give you about 15 minutes. Is you can sit in here, you can go outside, but take some time with yourself, talk to yourself and say, where am I? Because if we talk about the mission of the community and you're coming much more strongly from a first half of life, how people respond to your answers make a big difference in what you do. But we need to know where we are individually, and when you come back, I'm going to ask you briefly, and this is the test always, like in one sentence, you can be compound complex, but when period hits, that's the end of the sentence, is how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself in the first half of life, forming, being formed, deciding who you are? Do you see yourself in the second half of life of simply being loved by God, knowing what your gifts are, and being at peace with that? And you can also be 2/3, 1/3, because it's a process. You can be half and half. You can be a quarter, 3/4. But if you know where you are and you hear where other people are, you are much more likely to listen to them and appreciate their answer without assuming they're thinking just like you are, or they're the same place you are. Because we are all at different places. But we need to name that place and to know that so we can appreciate other people's responses. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Take some time with yourself. I will see you, at least by my watch, at 5 after 10. So whatever 15 minutes is by your watch. Back here.
If anyone needs to write something, there are notebooks